Next is a comprehensive midterm review of Nigeria's food security and agriculture since President Bola Tinubu assumed office 2 years ago, and the question on the lips of many is whether the Tinubu administration is putting enough food on the table of Nigerians. The administration had set off strongly by declaring a state of emergency on food security, renaming the Minister of Agriculture as Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, suggesting commitment to tackle Nigeria's food security crisis. Now, the state of emergency was quickly backed with a 100 billion naira agricultural development fund to provide funding to smallholder farmers. The Tinubu administration also launched what it calls dry season farming initiative with $134 million in financing from the African Development Bank. But despite the many policies of government, there remains a debate on whether the nation has achieved food availability and sufficiency in the country. Access to credit remains a major challenge to farmers, and more problematic is the spate of insecurity that's carrying farmers off their land. Now, some observers say the food prices have reduced, while many say affordability remains the problem for average Nigerians. Well, to help us take a look at the President's scorecard in agriculture in the last 2 years, we have joining us now from our Lagos studio, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari. Thank you and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Samna.
All right, so Minister, let's take off. How much have you been able to put food on the table of Nigerians? Let's start off from there.
Well, let me just start by saying you have just made the right intro by saying the President has declared a state of emergency on food security in July 2023, shortly after he was sworn in. It was very obvious that the country was sliding into a situation where population is growing and food was becoming unavailable and unaffordable. At that time, we could all recall that so many factors, including COVID, let me just start from COVID, which was 5 years ago, that impacted on food supply, and the flooding, the major floodings of 2022, and also the policy of the central bank where it had to design the Naira that had impacted farmers where there was no cash available in the rural communities. Farmers had to crash their prices to be able to raise some cash for harvest at that time because it was October 2022, and also down the lane, March 2023, where they had to make preparations for the big wet season. And farmers were not able to do that. So the prognosis at that time was that there was no availability of food, and I think that was when the World Food Program and the FAO had raised the concern that we are going to face some severe deficits on our food come 2024. Then again, Mr. President, in his good wisdom, has given us the mandate to make sure that we not only do dry season, but into 2 phases. The first phase was the wheat dry season that we launched in November 2023. For the first time in a long time, that Nigeria had cultivated over 120,000 hectares of wheat across 15 states, wheat-producing states in Nigeria, especially in the northern part of the country. Then the second phase of the dry season was the rice, maize, cassava, and that also happened in a lot of states, mainly in the north. But then the wet season of 2024, we did the rice support across all 36 states, including the FCT. So that, by and large, was an effort by government to make sure that food was available. And I can boast my chest, and I can boast and hit my, thumb my chest that food prices had come to a certain level. I listened to my brother who was speaking earlier that said the food prices have not come down, or what have we met it? Has he found out what the trend was looking like? when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took over. If those steps were not taken, I wonder where we would have been by now. But as I'm talking to you, food prices have stabilized, food prices have come down. Maize is around 42,000 naira per bag. Even as I'm talking now, we have to work a situation where we have to balance consumer welfare as against farmer welfare. Because as it is now, even farmers are complaining that prices are so low for them to go into cultivation. And that's what we're saying. We're trying to see where and how we can balance that, where it's going to be affordable for consumers and also an attraction for farmers. So in real terms, prices have come down.
Very interesting perspective indeed. Now let's talk about the issues of financing of the agricultural sector. We've seen the AFDB showing lots of interest and other multilateral institutions. Talk to us about how the government has been able to attract financing into the agricultural sector and of course the yields that have followed those financing initiatives.
Well, let me start by saying also that never in the history of this country that in a period of 2 years that the agricultural sector has seen so much support from government. You mentioned the $134 million budget support loan from the African Development Bank, which is still ongoing because we're into the second year of, or rather I would say the second year of NAGS, which is the National Agricultural Growth Scheme, Agro Pocket, which seeks to increase production of wheat, rice, maize, and sorghum and cassava. And then we also have on that an additional $100 million equivalent, which is about 15 billion yen from JICA, which is the Japanese Investment Corporation Agency, which is they have paid partly the first tranche of that money. Then in addition, the fertilizer support that Mr. President has given about 2,150,000 bags of fertilizer at one time, and it was given, and that was what impact on the last year's cultivation. We had a positive harvest last year, and there is no gainsaying. It's evident, it's there. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, where Ramadan, prices have not gone up enough. If anything, prices continue to slide down during Ramadan. And that is in a sense that shows the productivity level of our agricultural production for 2024 season. Now, food prices, like any other commodity, is an issue of pure economics, supply and demand. Whenever there is a lot of supply, prices stabilize and prices start coming down. And that is exactly what we've been seeing. In addition, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2023 had given an intervention support of 200 billion naira to the agricultural sector, which has been utilized. Then 100 billion to the National Agricultural Development Fund, which was just newly set up, which also impacted on the ginger blight. If you remember what has happened in some states in the north central, Kaduna, Niger, Kogi, Federal Capital, and Plateau. And then also carried out baseline studies of our research institutions, because what is key today is science. We cannot continue dealing with the same soil, the same crops, without having science, without having research put into what we're doing, so that we can, because the mantra today is increasing yield. And what we are seeing today is some of the crops that are really declining in yield is absence of good variety of seeds, absence of good fertilization, absence of good soil management, absence of extension service. And this started not now. It is now that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is trying to address these issues.
All right. Now let's talk about the security of smallholder
there's
farmers.
also
we actually have a large volume of smallholder farmers in Nigeria. I know that you're trying to do a lot of mechanization by bringing in lots of tractors and all of that. But the security of smallholder farmers in areas like Benue, your home state, Borno, and all of that is something that a lot of Nigerians are worried about, that due to insecurity, it may affect food availability. So talk to us about how we've been able to tame insecurity from the perspective of the average Nigerian smallholder farmer.
Well, when you look at what has been cultivated in 2024 and then the dry season 2024-2025, you would agree with me that a lot of farmlands was accessible by our farmers, especially in top areas like in Kaduna State, in Katsina State. Kaduna State, for instance, Birnigwari axis, Saminaka axis, there was a lot of bumper harvest that came out of those areas. In Zamfara State and Sokoto State and Kebbi, we have had a lot of harvest that came out of those areas. Even my state, in Borno State, I can beat my chest that what we produced last year in Borno State was much higher than what has been produced in the last 6-7 years prior to that. So nobody can come out and tell us that that those has not, accessibility to land has not been achieved. Yes, I see there's another resurgence of insecurity, but that's another story. But Mr. President has already directed that he's setting up the forest rangers, and also the directive that the agro rangers be reactivated to make sure farmers are secured and have access to farmlands.
Now, Honorable Minister, let's talk about the issues of staple foods in the country. One of the things that President Tinubu did was to actually ensure that, the issues of tariffs and importation of food into the country was tackled. Talk to us about how that has led to the reduction of food prices. Because people are saying that this may have led to the decline of food production in Nigeria because we had to open up our borders to import more food into the country. Though there was a timeline, I think, of 3 months that the president said that, this would happen.
It was a 180-day window that ended in December 2024. As far as the ministry and government is concerned, is that there was a 250,000 metric tons waiver given to maize and 250,000 metric tons given to wheat. Let me say, for instance, our annual demand, national demand for maize is about 25 million tons per annum. And if 250,000 waiver was given, 250,000 constitute 1% of our demand. Is that enough to bring down the price of goods? Now, I know there's cross-border trade here and there. We're in an ECOWAS situation, but we know that there was a lot of harvest, a lot of activity in agriculture. People that have not even ventured into agriculture before went into agriculture last year. And there's no gainsaying that we had a positive harvest against all the previous years that we have seen. But more or less, I know we have a problem of population growth. Nigeria grew by 5.6 million people in 2023. And last year, I think the result was out, is about 6.7 million. And I don't know what 2025 will portend. But we know that by 2050, Nigeria is expected to be about 400 million people, the third most populous country in the world. That alone can be turned into an opportunity, not a challenge, simply because when we look at maize, for instance, the staple food, the 25 million that we're talking about, there's a gap in terms of meeting up the national demand. But our type of seeds that we produce today and what our farmers are using give out a yield of average of about 2 tons per hectare. And we have seen around the world, and then technology-driven. I just came back from Brazil last week, and I see what they do. They're producing 10 tons per hectare. And if we can just tweak it and just double that production, we'll be able to cover our national demand. So I believe the right steps, the baseline studies we have done in our research institutes, the production of new varieties of hybrid seeds for maize and other crops, sorghum, and even recently we have done launched a rice Faro 71 and Faro 72 that has 40% of our daily requirement of zinc, which is also partly to deal with nutrition of especially the younger children and even the elderly. So research is all about for increasing yield. And I believe we're in the right direction. We have seen what Mr. President has impacted. We have 16 colleges, institutes, research institutes for different crops, and 17 colleges of agriculture. We have sat down, we met, and we have given them the mandate, Mr. President's mandate, to come up with seeds that are high yielding. And we are, in fact, turning around the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria. And very soon you will see the kind of yield that will produce.
All right, very interesting perspective. And as we try to coast home, talk to me about the mechanization process. The federal government is embarking with the contract, the deal with John Deere and, of course, the tractors that have been brought in. There's a target of 10,000. How many have been brought in and what's the state? And then, of course, the issues of distribution of these tractors and, of course, how farmers can access them.
Well, let me say this. We have 4 mechanization programs that we started from November 2023 with the signing of the MOU of the John Deere. And of course, that MOU was signed in Abuja. And by March the following year, in 2024, John Deere came up with the distortions in the market because of the removal of the subsidy and the leveling of the foreign currency, have decided to withdraw. They withdrew themselves. So immediately, Mr. President decided to initiate 2 procurement programs. Instead of the MOU that was signed that they were to bring and Nigeria was to guarantee the farmer. So this time around, Mr. President had gone ahead with the procurement of 2,000 tractors from Belarus, of which, as I'm talking to you now, we have 1,000 of them in Abuja, and Mr. President is going to launch them very soon. Those for every tractor, there will be a harrow, a plow, a seeder, a ridger, and we have 1,200 trailer, 5-ton trailers for the 2,000 tractors. And then in addition, the National Agricultural Development Fund, NADF, was also mandated to bring in 2,000 John Deere tractors, making a total of 4,000 tractors. Now, the 10,000 that you're making reference to was the original MOU by John Deere that they would supply 2,000 tractors for the next 5 years, making 2,000 tractors each year for the next 5 years, making a total of 10,000 tractors. Right. But so this is a direct procurement by Mr. President, and never has any given time in the history of this country that at any given time the federal government of Nigeria has procured 4,000 tractors at a given time.
All right, Honorable Mr. Just before I let you go, let's delve into the issues of politics.
The other two. Let me talk about
the politics of food.
Let me talk about the other two.
The opposition programs has been hitting you hard that Nigerians are hungry. Nigerians are hungry ahead of 2027 elections. Are you trying to, in one way or the other,
well, you just mentioned that the prices. You just mentioned that the prices of food have come down. I don't know where my brother and friend got this, because he doesn't go to the market. He's not. He doesn't. I'm sure. And he probably doesn't even relate with the people. I'm sorry to say. I mean, the last time Komalia won an election was 2003. That was 22 years ago. We are talking about people that are experts in this. This, Mr. President, we all know, has vision and is focused on trying to bring about change. The reforms that this government has taken, what Mr. President has taken, it was something that was much delayed. If we had not taken, we would have been in a worse situation that we are in now. We have a situation where we can now level out and start picking up our lives. Case in point, I mean, you know, subsidy was just there benefiting a few people instead of benefiting the 240 million Nigerians.
Right.
And I'm sorry, you know, he categorized Nigerians as, I don't know, I don't want to use the word because I'm not sure I heard him correctly. But I believe we have one of the best people, and the reforms, and we're being praised all over the world. I was in Brazil. We were given a standing ovation as a country for the reforms that Mr. President is taking. I was elected Vice Chairman of International Fund for Agricultural Development, which is the #1 funding agency under the United Nations structure, IFAD. I was elected as the Vice Chairman of the Governing Council. So, I mean, we are out there and people are observing and noticing what we're doing. And as I'm talking to you now, yes, we have not reached the affordability index of Mr. President, but we're doing assiduously as much as possible to make sure that we achieve that target.
All right. We must thank you so much, Senator Abubakar Kyari, Nigeria's Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, for laying down all of this, and we'll continue to hope that you do well in your office, because you're one of those people who have been in the federal legislature, and then of course you're now in government, and we can only wish you well. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, that's the much we can take on this edition of This Week. Thanks to our production team here in Abuja, Lagos and London. Do join us same time next week for another exciting edition. I'm Somna Samuel.